regulatory language, so because it's a protocol rather than the standard, so it will where something is sort of a requirement in order to meet the EU obligation or to ensure the purpose of the standard that's being implemented, we use words like must. So it's firm language. But at the same time, it's just trying to describe a set of technical procedures. So the key operational part is really the procedure. Then 4 and 5 is management and control and documentation and reporting. So we try and set down what management and control procedures need to be applied to ensure the protocol or the standard. So that might be sort of providing a monitoring system. It might be sort of allocating specific responsibilities or to a person in your team, or establishing a team to monitor, whatever it might be. And documentation and reporting, just what documents need to be maintained in order to demonstrate compliance and monitor compliance with the protocol. And these are the documents, obviously, that the competent authority wants to look at when they come to visit. And where it's helpful, we've produced a sort of template. So the operators can just use the template in the protocol to complete their documentation requirements. And then the last part is guidance. So this obviously is not part of the operational part of the protocol, but just performs a number of functions, really, provides perhaps a little bit more background about the importance or rationale for the protocol. Perhaps just tries to elaborate a little bit on some of the requirements that need to be implemented. So because we need to keep the language clear and sort of framed in sort of a regulatory tone in the protocol, sometimes we've taken some of the more sort of descriptive or lengthy explanations of the measures out of the operational part of the protocol and into the guidance. Or it might just explain some of the sort of ways the protocol might be implemented, or some of the optional elements of the protocol that don't need to be implemented to meet EU requirements or to comply with a particular standard, but which actually a lot of operators might follow or might find useful or helpful or whatever. So that's the format for each protocol. And I think it would be interesting, I think one of the key questions for me really is whether you find that format helpful and easy to follow. I think actually this is where the breakout groups can really be useful, because I think we want to see whether it's useful from the 3 different perspectives we have. So is it useful from a lawyer's perspective? Is it sort of capable of forming part of the regulatory system? Is it useful from the fisheries stakeholders' perspective? Do you think your stakeholders, your operators, your fishing vessel operators would be able to follow these protocols, would find it useful, more useful perhaps than the regulatory tools you have at the moment, or not? And also useful from the sort of veterinary side, the competent authority side, the SPS sort of control side. Do these documents kind of make sense from a technical point of view, but also are they sort of useful for you to use as a reference for conducting official controls and that sort of thing. So I think actually, just in terms of a general assessment of how we set out the protocol and what sort of information is in there, we're very interested in getting the perspectives from the 3 different groups. So these are the key questions I think that we have really for the protocols, which would very much like feedback on this afternoon. But remember, I don't want to fetter your free spirits. So just really any comments, any observations you have about the protocols, please let us have them. And actually. please don't hesitate to criticise them or point out something that you think is not right or missing. Our objective is to make these documents as effective as possible. So, in a way, that's we're going to strengthen the documents more by hearing how they could be improved or what's wrong with them than by people sort of simply agreeing. So I implore you to be as critical as you desire. And just provide general feedback on the protocols and the concept of the protocols and the content and format of the protocols, but also maybe think about these specific questions. So I think we're interested to know whether you think this overall idea, this concept of having regional protocols, which are sort of transplanted into the national legal systems, is something that not only will work but actually will be beneficial. And what you see perhaps as the challenges or the problems or constraints to doing that. So even if it's a good concept in principle, in reality, is it something that you can see working in your countries? And maybe you could even carry out some kind of SWOT analysis of it in your own sort of minds. What are the sort of strengths of this as a system? What are the weaknesses? What are the sort of potential benefits that it could bring? I should just add perhaps as well at this moment in terms of the validation, I think in your groups it's not necessary to come to any sort of consensus. If there's a different sort of perspectives from different countries, we need to hear that as well, because I think what we will find is that for some countries they may think, well, actually, yeah, we could do that the way we organise our systems in our country, that would fit in very nicely. And other countries might think this is completely different to how we do it, or we've just developed a system of our own. We're not very interested in reinventing the wheel. And what we need to do is actually sort of capture all those different national reflections. We've already got a sense actually of some of the challenges in terms of national differences. But actually, this workshop's an opportunity to discuss those a little bit more. So you don't need to come to a consensus on a sort of single view as a group. If there's sort of different perspectives from different countries or different people, different individuals, then that's fine, and we'd like to hear those. We discussed a little bit the legal status of the protocols. What should be the legal status in the long term? So perhaps in the short term, we've said in our recommendation these should be voluntary but incorporated, transplanted into the national legal systems. In the longer term, perhaps there's scope to sort of develop that a little bit, so we have a completely harmonised regional system that is adopted through a regulatory mechanism at the regional level, and doesn't even require implementation at the national level. That might be something in the long term. You might feel that that's something that should be brought forward into the short term, and in particular then that raises the question of how it might fit into the CARICOM machinery. At the moment this is something outside of the sort of it's not a CARICOM sort of formal, has no formal legal status in CARICOM, but it does use the CARICOM institutions. It's created, and it would be a sort of creation of the CARICOM institutions, particularly the agencies. So I think there's some questions, perhaps this is more for the lawyers, but maybe not just the lawyers, on the sort of legal status of the protocols. And also, I think an important question is how should they be incorporated at the national level? So this is really a question of how automated the process should be. Should it just be automatic, subject to sort of some sort of opt-out clause in case the national country wants to pull, and the country wants to pull the plug? Is the sort of licensing approach, as we suggested, better? And that allows a bit of picking and mixing. You can say, well, for this operator, these are the standards that we're having, and that's part of your license. These operators, these are the standards you must comply with, the condition of your license. Or should it just be something that's totally left to sort of national legislation? And so there needs to be sort of a regulation or national process for adopting protocols, which can then adopt them either changed into the national legal system. So that's really a question of sort of how automated the process should be. missed out my points on the format. The scope of the protocols, what should the protocol should cover. And sorry, I've repeated the bullet on the last one. We've proposed, so that this format here, is this usable? These are the questions that I was mentioning a few minutes ago. Is this usable, sir? The lawyer.